Just want to say thanks to everyone for joining us. Today's webinar is with the lovely Sunny Nunan, and it's just an example of Cabinet's commitment to providing resources for the EA community. And this one's a pretty special edition, so I will just say a few announcements and then I'll turn the mic over to Sunny. But before, I want to tell you guys about an event coming up, the High Performing Executive Assistant Summit hosted by Cabinet. It's April 22nd and 23rd. It'll be in the morning. Well, it depends where you are. It starts at 8 a.m. In California. And then I think on the East Coast, it starts at 11 a.m. But it will be recorded. So we will be, if you can't make every session, we'll pass that on to you. And we'll cover topics like administrative excellence on Teams, how to think like a CEO, tactical subjects like public speaking on Zoom, how to manage business travel, and so much more. So it's super excited for that. If you're a Cabinet Pro member, you can sign up. I think Evan is dropping in the links, but if you're Cabinet Pro member, you just have to register, but you get it with your subscription. If you're not a Cabinet Pro member, you can still register. You can get a ticket. So Evan's dropping that into the chat. Now that's it actually for announcements. So for today's webinar, please post your questions in the chat tool throughout the presentation. And I will try and if you have any, I will let you know, Sunny. I'll stop and interrupt you if that's okay. Or we can wait till the end. Do you have a preference, Sunny?
You know, I am totally cool with people asking questions when they have them. So yeah, that's fine with me.
Awesome. Okay. So just drop your questions in the chat and then we'll share most of the recording with you afterwards over email. So a little introduction of Sunny. Sunny is the founder and CEO of the Admin Awards. And she's really important to us because she's putting the spotlight on the vital role of the executive assistant. So she's a very unique speaker for this webinar series. So she's going to talk a little bit about the program with you, which she founded in, I think, 2014. Is that right?
2012, close.
2012. Okay. Yeah. Wow. And it started in Dallas and now it's spread all across the country. So, and she's going to talk about a couple of, I think, some past winners, the logistics and how to apply. So I hope, I hope you all are interested in the awards, or I'm sorry, not how to apply, but how to be nominated or how to nominate somebody. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Sunny. And please post your questions in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. I am going to share my screen. And as Julia mentioned, we're going to start by telling you a little bit about the Admin Awards. But what I thought would be even more interesting than that is talking about the winners and sharing some winner stories with you, because that's really what this is all about. And I think it's way more fun and way more fascinating to hear about what your peers are doing. And they're probably doing a lot of things that you're doing and you're thinking, God, I didn't know that the things I do every day are worthy of being recognized for an Admin Award. And then there are going to be some things where you're like, that's so interesting, and will maybe even give you the courage to do things a little bit differently. So we're going to focus most of this on the making of a winner, but I'd like to kick us off with, let me share my screen real quick. I would like to kick us off with, can you see my screen, Julia? I always get nervous when I have to share screen. I'm like, am I sharing it right now? All right, awesome. So I'd like to kick us off by sharing a video with you that we just completed. We are typically an in-person event, right? And then, of course, when 2020 hit, we had to sort of rethink everything about how we execute the Admin Awards program in our different cities. And we put together this culmination of Admin Awards Live, which is just a short video that features some of the winners that have gone through our program over the last several months. And so I'd like to kick off our talk today with this video. Can you still see my screen? Awesome. All right, here we go. So that is what the Admin Awards is all about, right? It's about celebrating. Oh, you know what? Let me pull my presentation up again.
That was awesome. I love that compilation video. And I know you have a video on your website, I think, of the live events too. I mean, when do you guys plan? I'm sorry to ask this, like, so soon in the presentation, but
It's great.
are you planning on doing live again in sometime in the future?
So it's funny you should ask. So we are definitely planning on virtual events throughout 2021. There is a small possibility that we might do one live event later in the year, which would be the Cheers reception, and it would be in the Dallas-Fort Worth market, but we won't do that unless we are super, super confident that we're not going to put people at risk or make them feel pressured to attend something that other people may be able to attend if we haven't either reached herd immunity or like mass vaccination. So our hope is that in 2022, everything is back to normal and we're rocking and rolling again. So that's what we're hoping for.
Okay, cool. Well, it looks amazing. Even the virtual ones look super fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And that was actually a surprise. And I won't go into too much detail about our decision to move into virtual, but what I will tell you is we had to take a step back and ask ourselves, does the world want the Admin Awards in 2020? And what was really cool is the question was answered by executives that were emailing us saying, are you doing this? Because we spent about 6 weeks not communicating anything because we were like, well, people are worried about their mortality. The last thing they need to do is hear marketing messages from us about nominate your admin when everybody was just trying to figure out what is this thing? It was starting to feel like it wasn't going to be back to normal really quickly. So all that to say, absolutely, administrative professionals are so critical during normal times, but I will tell you, and I don't have to tell you all this, during challenging times like the past 14, 16 months, it has been very clear who is helping leaders and organizations hold it all together. So we got so much great feedback that we still had our programs and that we still created an opportunity for people to say thank you to the people doing so much more than even during normal times with all the changes. And I don't have to tell you all again, you all know it, but yes, we're super, super excited to continue virtual. And we didn't know we would be. We were like, oh my God, we've got to have a virtual event. This isn't going to be fun. And then we said, man, if we've got to make it fun and we've got to make it feel like anything but virtual. So I feel like we did it. And so thank you for asking about that. Somebody just asked, are the nominations limited to the few cities represented? Okay, so great news about Milwaukee. Wisconsin is rolled up into our Chicagoland program, and that's permanent. However, we are telling anyone that wants to nominate an admin for an admin award in 2021, because we are still virtual, pick the market that is closest to you and submit the nominations. So we want your nominations, and it's also super cool that if we get a lot of nominations from a specific city, guess where we're going next, right? So it's an opportunity to participate, even if you're not in a market that's super close to one of our existing markets. And then I'm going to tell you this in a second, but we've announced our 10th market, which is going to be Washington, D.C., which is D.C., Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia. And so we are absolutely expanding. But yeah, this year you can nominate in any of the 9 operating markets. All right, Whitney's there. Yay, Whitney, hi. I wish I could see everyone. I know you can't during a webinar, but I'm super excited to see one familiar name that I know in the comments. Okay, so next what I'm gonna do is, again, talk about, can y'all see my screen again? We're good? Okay, I'm going to talk about the admin awards and then we'll roll into the winner stories. But before we roll into that, if y'all have questions after we just talk about the nuts and bolts and the mission of the program, we can break before we go into the making of a winner piece. Okay, so The Admin Awards is a program that is really, really personal to me. I'm the daughter of an executive secretary. My mom is the inspiration for this program, and she actually retired just shy of her 80th birthday, believe it or not. And while my mom, during her heyday, was an executive secretary to presidents and CEOs, I think she did her most impactful work from that desk right there, where she was serving as a receptionist at a big technology company in Irving, Texas called Epsilon. And my mom was there for about 15 years before she went into retirement. And I'll tell y'all, she was the first person that nervous applicants would be greeted by that were going to interview for a position. She was the last person that employees would say goodbye to when they were leaving the company. She was the first person that would hear when somebody was having a baby or somebody was getting divorced or somebody was going through an illness. And when my mom retired from her role there, she was given a scrapbook that, I kid you not, was at least 5 inches thick, full of cards and letters and all kinds of mementos about what she meant to her coworkers during her time there. She was the matriarch of the company. And, I'll tell you, when I created the Admin Awards, I just knew that my mom was so beloved, and I just had this suspicion that she wasn't alone, that there were many people across the US who were very much the matriarch of their organizations, who were being relied on for so much more than just what was on the job description. So I created the Admin Awards in Dallas, Texas, thinking it was going to be a small annual awards program. Didn't ever imagine it would be something that we grew nationally. And as the saying goes, men plan, God laughs. And today we are in 10 markets, and that is in direct response to people saying, I've got extraordinary administrative support. When are you coming to my city? And so we are continuing to roll the program out. And it is, I have the best job because we get to honor the people that are so busy serving everybody else around them. We get to serve you, and we do it with, every ounce of passion and love for you and all that you do for your leaders. And so I will tell you, what we suspected a decade ago when we created the first Admin Awards program has absolutely proven true again and again and again. And that is that there is no shortage for administrative professionals and all that you do. But if your leaders thanked you every time you did something for them, nobody would get anything done, because the innate nature of the role is service, service, service. And so we know that there has never been a shortage of appreciation. There just wasn't a tangible vehicle, a public recognition platform for showing that appreciation. And so every time we flip the switch on a new market, we're always so encouraged and so excited by the idea that appreciation for admins is absolutely universal. It's not something that some cities experience a need for and others don't. It is absolutely across the US. So that's a little bit about my mom. We in every market offer 9 award categories, and the award categories are designed to reflect whatever stage you are in your career as an administrator. And so what do I mean by that? Well, my mom got her secretarial certificate in the 50s. She was very much the Mad Men, Miss Moneypenny, if you're a James Bond fan, administrator, right? She was ordering office supplies and greeting people and taking dictation. In fact, I grew up with, steno pads all over our house, and my mom would write notes to herself in shorthand, especially around Christmas time, because we couldn't read it. And that's how she would make the Christmas lists for her and my dad's 5 kids, right? So my mother is the very traditional, she has a high school diploma. She got her secretarial certificate. She doesn't have a college degree, a graduate degree like so many admins have today, but her contributions are every bit as valid as those that are serving as strategic partners, like many of you who are more educated, you're tech savvy, you're doing so many things that again, are often way above your pay grade, right? Because if it needs to get done and you don't know how to do it, what do? You figure it out, or you get the education that you need to develop, competencies in these other areas. So the 9 award categories have the ability to recognize the sort of, traditional administrator, as well as the modern day strategic partner. And so you'll see the awards are Rookie of the Year. That's for someone new to the role. The Achiever Award, that's for somebody that has completed a significant project that had a company-wide impact, or that administrator that is just getting it done day in, day out. If you need something figured out and completed really effectively, that's the Achiever Award candidate. The Spirit Award, that's the heartbeat of the company. That's the person that you're drawn to during good days and bad. The Loyalty Award, that's for the admin that's got 20 more or years of service in the profession and or 10 or more years of service at their specific company. The Strategic Partnership Award is an award that we created last year. Our Boston market, our advisory board said, hey, we think we need an award dedicated to that business partnership that is so often between the modern day admin and their leader. And we said, you know what, we think you're right. Let's give it a go in Boston. Today, that is an award in every single market. The Leadership Award, which is for an administrator that either by job description or by they've just taken it upon themselves to serve as a mentor and leader to their peers, both in the administrative sector and not in the admin profession. The Above the Call Award is for that admin that provides extraordinary service from an admin position. And then the Public Service Award, which is an award for administrators in, pharma, healthcare, government, education, nonprofit. And then last but not least, the Colleen Barrett Award for Administrative Excellence. And that is an award that is our program's most prestigious award. The criteria was created by the legendary legal secretary turned president and COO of one of the world's most successful companies, Southwest Airlines. And that award is full of criteria that Colleen believes enabled her rise through the ranks at Southwest when she went from legal secretary to president and COO of that amazing company. And we're going to talk about Colleen and Herb's relationship in a couple minutes. But those are the award categories. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Does anybody have any questions? I got to pull up the chat box real quick.
Yeah, it looked like Michelle asked, are there limits to which
Yes.
titles are considered admin professionals?
I love that you're asking. And hi, Michelle, we spoke earlier today. So the cool thing about what's happening in the admin profession, and we're really passionate about this, and that's career pathing so that administrators don't only have two titles to look forward to, admin assistant and executive assistant. We're also seeing titles like VP of Administration, Chief of Staff, Chief Executive Assistant. We're also seeing HR generalists showing up in our program. And so there are over 150 titles we estimate that reflect the administrative function. And so as long as the company deems that the person is in an administrative role and they agree that they are, we're happy to have them in the competition regardless of what the title says. Right? Because we would sort of be hypocritical to say, oh no, only executive assistants and admin assistants. And once you become, an operations manager or a VP of administration, you're not eligible. That would be crazy because we're seeing this exciting movement into a lot of unique and interesting and elevating job titles. So great question. All right. These are the markets that we're in right now. And as I mentioned earlier, no matter what market you're in, find the market that's closest to you. And because we're virtual, you don't have to travel to attend a gala. I will say this, during normal times, it is important that you're able to travel to a market if you are one of the admins that is declared a finalist, because you have to be present to win. So I'll tell you what happened in Silicon Valley. So we had Google, Maxim Integrated, HP say, hey, we have administrators in India, in the Philippines, in South Africa, in Singapore. Can we nominate them for an admin award if we're willing to fly them back to the States on our dime if they become a finalist? And we said, absolutely. Why? That's like amazing. We want to reach as many admins as we can. So if you're willing to fly them in, nominate them. So that's a really fun thing. And we have had companies do that because we have had finalists from all over the world through their HQ, which is typically operating in one of our cities. I won't spend too much time on this slide, but this is where we are and when throughout the year, and all this information is available on our website. And our Washington, D.C. market is going to have its first event in 2020. And we're actually going to be starting advisory board meetings in a couple months. So, and Whitney is whiskey. Would you like to be called whiskey sometimes, Whitney? I'm sure we could all use one. But Whitney is a part of our executive board in the DC market and is one of the admins that has played an instrumental role in us deciding to go into Washington, DC next. So I will tell you, the Admin Awards is really smart because we listen to the admin community who helps guide us in so many ways and who helps make so many amazing things happen. And so all these cities that we're in, we have advisory boards that help us shape those cities and that help us avoid mistakes. They tell us when to have the events. They tell us where to have the events. They make sure that the award categories are on par with, what the, administrative profession needs and wants. So we're really excited. And our goal is to double those markets over the next several years. And I think we're on our way to doing that. All right. So I believe there's never been a better time to be an administrative professional. And let me talk a little bit about why. So during this environment, admins are working harder than ever to keep their organizations together, and people are noticing. They're noticing what you're doing in really creative ways to make people feel connected and to make sure that your leaders know that you're there and you're working even harder. We know you're working even harder in a virtual environment. Another piece is the Me Too movement has changed the environment dramatically from the 50s to the 2000s. And what do I mean by that? Well, my mom and I have had many conversations about what it meant to be a secretary back in her day. And I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but I will tell you, as I watch a lot of TV and I watch a lot of movies, and anytime I hear an unnecessary, meaning unnecessary that it's not critical to the storyline, when a comment's made in a derogatory way about a secretary or an administrative professional, which they usually call them secretaries when they're making sort of derogatory comments, like my blood starts to boil because the profession has evolved so much and everybody knows that it has. But let's face it, back in the early days, it was really tough to be an administrator. I am hearing less and less of those stories and more amazing stories about all the good things that are happening in the profession. And so today you get a level of respect and you're in an environment that is safer, is healthier, is more empowering than I think people like my mother had to endure. So it's a great time to be an admin from that perspective. Companies are way more focused on competitive compensation in the admin function than I believe they have ever been. Even 10 years ago, we saw pay disparity that drove us nuts. Somebody would say, hey, we're looking for an admin. Can you help us? And I would say, well, how much are you? People want to know what the comp is. And when the comp would come in ridiculously low, I would say, you're looking for an intern right out of college. You're not looking for an admin. And there's a big difference. And so we have seen that change so much. Y'all, pay has gotten so competitive. Companies are absolutely focusing on professional development and career pathing. We're about to do a roundtable discussion on how to create a career leveling guide in an organization that relies heavily on admins. And you want to make sure you understand what the benchmarks are to get that admin to the next phase in their career at the company. We're seeing more and more of that. This interest in being really intentional about making sure that administrators can see a career path and they don't have to leave the job they love so much to move up either in title or compensation. We're also seeing amazing productivity and networking tools like Cabinet. I mean, listen, do you think companies like Cabinet would invest in new technologies if this was a dying profession? So anytime you read BS about, oh, the death of the administrative professional, nothing could be farther from the truth. About every 7 years, stupid articles are written by people that don't do their due diligence, that haven't taken the time to really understand the role, that don't understand that when the census data comes out, they're looking at titles not holistically, like we understand them to be, but they're looking at outdated titles and they're drawing really unfair and inaccurate conclusions. I will tell you, with every new technology that enters the scene, there is a need for people to integrate that technology, to execute the technology. And I don't think, I think one day admins will be using Alexa and Siri. and Google Assistant, but I don't think those tools are going to ever replace an admin. And like a friend of mine said, when a technology like Siri can run down the hallway with a notepad going, but wait, but what about this? But what about this to their executive, then we have a problem. But even robotics are not that advanced. So we're fine. And then last but not least, the world has woken up to the power of the modern day administrative professional. And I'm going to talk about this slide in a second, but that is Times Square that congratulated an administrator for winning an admin award on their leaderboard in the middle of New York City. So the other thing I want to say is anytime I hear a lack of respect for administrators, it's from people who will never have one. It's from people who are not supported by an administrator, who are not at the executive level, who quite frankly are just ignorant. So I hope you, like I have tried to do, don't take it personally, let it roll and just know, you'll never have an admin. Because if you're that ignorant about this role and how, yeah, I'm the first person you need to cozy up to if you want something done, you're not going to go far at the company. Okay. Little bit about what's going on in the admin community today, in case you're curious, which we found these things to be really interesting. Admins are working harder than ever to keep everything together in your organizations. I don't have to tell you that. A lot of admins are using this extra time that you have not having to commute to continue your education. There have been a lot of free classes that have been released in program management, in like graphic design, in so many other areas. So take advantage of master classes. And again, the time that you're not having to commute to brush up on those skills that you've always wanted to brush up on, but didn't have the time to. Admins are really working hard to find balance during what is 24/7 access. I had an admin in Boston several months ago say, you know what? I am literally mentally on 24/7. So if I decide at 2:00 in the afternoon that I've got to go out and clean my garage, I'm going to do it and I'm not going to feel guilty. And I'm not going to feel like I have to explain myself for needing to take a break to get something done around the house. They're not asking for permission. They're finding this. You know what you do all day, right? You know that you're working sometimes at 9:00 at night. You got to give yourself that time on the other end, right? To do the things that you need to get done, maybe during business hours, because you're working during personal hours. And admins know that, and they're giving themselves permission to do what they need to do to find that balance. Some admins are concerned about out of sight, out of mind. I'm hoping that none of you have that concern anymore, because things are definitely, I think we've all worked out how to work from home effectively, but they're doing things like injecting themselves in meetings that they wouldn't normally to be present, to be visually present. They're sending recaps at the end of the week to make sure that their leaders know what they've done. And even though they never read it, they're doing it, and it's helping them feel that sense of accountability. Because listen, we get distracted and we know that. And those of you that have small kids at home, I don't know how you've been doing it, especially those that are school age kids. So it's good to have sort of that internal accountability, just to know that, yeah, I'm getting all these things done that I set to do on Monday come Friday. We're also hearing about sort of this idea that there's a humanization of leaders, that when you see your leader's kid pop up from behind the desk chair, or you hear the spouse in the kitchen say something that they didn't realize would be heard because their partner is on a Zoom call, they're seeing the pictures and the decorations on the back of a bookshelf. Admins are saying, I feel like I know my leader more now in this virtual environment than I ever did working in the office. So that's kind of been really cool. And let's face it, whether it's a 100-year pandemic or another crisis, those are sort of great equalizers, right? The playing field gets really level really fast. And we're reminded that before we're engineers and doctors and lawyers and CEOs and admins and customer service agents, we're human. And I think we've been reminded of the idea that we're all human during these challenging times. And then I've got admins that are saying, man, there have been a lot of blessings and benefits to working from home or to hybrid situations. I had one admin say, man, I've got 2 preteen girls, and normally, single mom, we run out of the house, we eat on the fly, we never have breakfast together. I sometimes get choked up when I talk about this. She's like, I'm getting to have breakfast with my girls every morning, and we're talking about things that we haven't really had time to talk about. And so I know it's been a really hard year for everyone. I mean, unless you're Clorox or Zoom, everybody's probably found these last several months to be pretty challenging, but I do hope that you've seen sort of the underbelly of these trying times, and that you're seeing that there are blessings to be had. And I also hope that some of these really good habits don't stop when we all go back into the office. I don't know about you, but I've picked up a lot of good habits. I have no intention of ever giving up. And I hope you give yourself permission as well to advocate for yourself. All right. So before we get rocking and rolling on some of the winner stories, does anybody have any questions just about the nuts and bolts of our program? No? Okay, I'm gonna roll right into it. Okay, so this is the really fun part. And I'm just gonna keep talking about these winners until we run out of time. I'm not gonna be able to get to all of them. So if I think we're running out of time, I might skip a couple. I could have hundreds of stories to share with you. It's like trying to pick which kid is your favorite when I'm choosing winner stories. But these are some that have just really stood out over the past year. And then I've got some sort of timeless ones that I wanna make sure I share with you. Okay. So the first story I'm going to tell is about Colleen Barrett and Herb Kelleher. So Colleen was the secretary to Herb. Herb worked for a law firm when he ultimately bought what is today Southwest Airlines. And Colleen, the way she met Herb is he was this gregarious, irreverent lawyer, and his office was an absolute mess. And Colleen was a new legal secretary at this law firm. And this guy that she hadn't met was not in the office. He was traveling for a few days, and she looked in his office and she said, I don't know who this guy is, but I can't handle it. So she took it upon herself to go into Herb's office and clean it up, much to the shock and dismay of everyone at the firm, because it was Herb. And you don't touch anything in Herb's office, because even though it looked like a bomb went off, Herb knew where everything was. Well, the amazing thing that started this 6-decade-long friendship and partnership was Herb not only was shocked that his office had been cleaned up, but what shocked him even more was Colleen could tell him where every single piece of paper was, and it all made sense. And so from that day on, a partnership was formed that would go on to become a partnership at Southwest Airlines that would go on for 5 decades. Think about this. When 9 to 5 was the movie that everybody watched to understand what a secretary did and was, Herb was busy promoting his through the ranks at Southwest Airlines. Long before it was cool to consider your admin your business partner, Herb saw what a tremendous asset he had in Colleen. And so they say at Southwest, if Herb was the brains behind Southwest Airlines, Colleen was the heart. I happen to know personally that together they absolutely were both the brains and heart individually. And this idea that if you put your employees first, they take care of the customer and everything falls into place is what has allowed Southwest to survive when a lot of airlines didn't know, quite frankly, that they were going to make it through this. And it's that warrior spirit that absolutely comes shining through in Colleen's finalists and winners, who she personally selects for the award category that bears her name. And Herb sadly passed away a couple years ago. And Colleen today is still, she's retired. She's president emeritus of Southwest Airlines. But many of you know this, Colleen has been a fierce advocate for this profession, because all the while she was rising through the ranks, she kept her title of secretary, because she'll tell you to this day, it's the one she's proudest of. And so that, I think, is probably the most powerful example of what a partnership between a CEO and an administrator can do for an organization. And so we love Herb and Colleen. We love Southwest Airlines, and we're so honored to continue Colleen's legacy through our program. All right, Debbie Gross. Debbie Gross is like the Colleen Barrett in Silicon Valley. So this is a cool story. So Debbie was the executive assistant to John Chambers, who was the chairman of Cisco, one of the world's leading global technology companies. While John was a sales guy rising through the ranks of Cisco, Debbie Gross was his executive assistant rising alongside him. When John was interviewed by a major newspaper, he said, and it's in print, you can look it up, Cisco Systems would not be where it is today without Debbie Gross. So for any of you that ever wonder, do people see me? Do they know the impact that I'm having? They absolutely do. And this is a shining example of that. Another cool story about Debbie. So Debbie was one of the first to create an organization called the Silicon Valley Catalyst Association in Silicon Valley. And it was one of the first admin-led membership organizations. And in the early days, the story goes that they were sitting around talking about job titles, and they were like, my boss is a chief executive officer. Why am I not a chief executive assistant? I'm the EA to a Fortune 500 CEO. Well, they decided that this group was going to create a new job title called Chief Executive Assistant. And I think Debbie was either the first or second person to go to her boss decades ago and say, John, you know how you're CEO, Chief Executive Officer for a Fortune 500 company? He says, yes, Debbie, I know that. She said, well, I am your executive assistant. I would like a title that also reflects that, the way that yours does. And he goes, okay, well, when you think about it, come back and let me know, and I'm sure it'll be no problem. She says, well, I already know what I want my job title to be. And he said, okay, Debbie, let's hear it, but you're not going to get a raise today, but what's the job title? And she said, I would like to be your chief executive assistant. And he thought it was a phenomenal idea. He gave it to her with absolutely zero resistance. And that title is something we're seeing more and more. So if you are an executive assistant to a C level, I recommend that you advocate for yourself and you tell the story and you tell your boss, maybe I want to raise right away. I say that's the route you go. But if not, then I definitely think that you should at least challenge your leader to look at this job title so that you're not an executive assistant forever without that evolution in chief before. Because let's face it, titles matter. How you present yourself to people internally and externally is important to admins, just like it is to non-admins. So I love that story, and I hope it inspires you to be really bold and courageous when you look at your job title. So this is a fun story. It's sort of a quick one, but Janikai Menon from Synopsys has a bachelor's degree in electrical and electronics engineering from a technical university in India. What's really cool is Janaki was an engineer and saw what administrators were doing and felt like that was her calling, not electrical engineering. And one of her nominators in her nomination was talking about, he says, I was also very impressed that as she was sharing with me her background and previous career, to hear that she was and still is an engineer. I remember contemplating her talk and absorbing the details of her wishes to switch her career path. She told me that she thought she was meant to be an engineer, but she observed the key role of an assistant within a company, and she realized that that's the role that she wanted to embrace. And so I love that, because when people, ask you about your desire to be an administrator, you can say, did you know that today there are engineers choosing to be administrators? Because you have to be so many highly technical things. But on top of that, I call admins unicorns, because you have to have all these fierce skills, and then you have to be willing to do the little things. And guys, I have so many nominations with so many examples of the little things that are so incredibly important. And so Janikai is a great example of that. And I could go on and on about this, but she has this really unique ability to interact with program managers in a way that makes her so uniquely qualified for her position. She supports 7 product leaders and their team. And for her to be able to support those folks with an engineering background, but with a heart for the administrative function, is really, really a unique skill set. And so I love that story. She actually won the Rookie of the Year award in Silicon Valley because she's doing her job with flying colors. This next story is a really fun one. So I love this quote. Daniela Benoteza won the Loyalty Award in San Francisco. And Keith Crack is this very charismatic, larger than life, well-known tech entrepreneur. And in his nomination, he literally put, she thinks better for me than I do. And we laugh because to read that, I can just hear Keith saying it. And so she took the stage in Silicon Valley, and she was talking about, she had been with Keith for 3 decades. And she was talking about how, man, she has ridden the highs and she has survived the lows and the lowest of lows, right? When you're an EA alongside an entrepreneur, it is a roller coaster. And she has ridden that roller coaster with him for decades. And he talks about the Magnificent Seven. He actually created these 7 skills that Daniela has had that has helped them together weather so many storms. And they are infinite range, unwavering values, more than just work ethic, high proficiency, renowned customer service, mission-driven leadership, and community-oriented. And so Daniela, it was really cool to see her take the stage. It was the first time that I saw that when she won the award, people jumped up so fast and so high. We had several chairs fall backwards. And you can see there, we had our first concert signs ever at an event, and there were more than one. And so all those people were there to cheer on Daniela. So again, if you ever wonder, am I valued? Do people see me? Do people love me? Am I making an impact? If you haven't been nominated yet, I hope you are. And I know that your company and leaders will rally around you like they did Daniela Benoteza. I could go on and on about Jen Hiwa, but what I will tell you is Jen is the executive secretary to the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Northern District of California. It does not get higher than this in the legal industry. And so Jen actually ended up winning the Colleen Barrett Award for Administrative Excellence. And I want to share something with you that her nominator shared with us. He said, I first met Jen in 2009 on the eve of a white collar trial, United States versus Charles McCall, and it was described by the LA Times as one of the largest financial crimes ever investigated by the FBI and Securities and Exchange Commission. Although Jen had only been with the U.S. Attorney's Office for a year at this point, it was already clear that she was a rising star in the office. After going to trial with Jen this one time, I knew that I never wanted to go to trial without her. And for more than a decade since, I have never gone to trial without Jen. This office, guys, they investigate all kinds of really violent crimes, drug crime, public corruption, corporate corruption, computer intrusions, hacking, civil rights. I mean, all kinds of heinous white collar crime, blue collar crime, every kind of horrible crime imaginable. Jen's office, through the U.S. Attorney's Office, they deal with that. And this nomination goes on and on and on to talk about how she is so incredibly prepared and patient. She treats people with dignity, no matter who they are. And guys, that's really important because, man, when you are, dealing with such heinous crimes, I know it'd be real easy for me to give somebody the stink eye. Jen just doesn't do it. She treats everybody with incredible respect. And that's something that is a theme in this nomination. And I know it's something that you all do too. You treat people that also wonder, do people see me? Do they care? I have this immense problem and I can't get anybody to listen. It's the admin that's listening, right? And that's no exception here as well. But what I want to share with you is a letter that Jen wrote us. It's her nominee statement that was just really, really beautiful. And she says that she was born in South Korea. Her father, a Japanese American, born and raised in Hawaii, met her mother in South Korea while he was in the Army. They moved to the US when she was 3 years old. She's the eldest of 5 children. She grew up in a small agricultural town in Salinas Valley. Neither of her parents went to college. She's the first in her family to go. She had to navigate the college process on her own. Right after she graduated from high school, she packed her bags and she moved to San Francisco with $300 to her name. And she was determined to get a college education and achieve this goal on her own. And she went on to do it, y'all. And again, I wish I could go on and on about how she put herself through college, how she rise through the ranks in different positions, and just what a phenomenal impact she's had on so many around her, but also the impact that this profession has had on her, the daughter of immigrants. It's a really inspirational read, but I don't have time to go into all of it, but it was really, really cool. I actually had a legal secretary email me a couple days ago, and she basically said, I'm not an admin, I'm a legal secretary, so I don't really think this award program is right for me. And I kindly sent her a note back that said, well, the executive secretary to the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of California just won our program's most prestigious award. And not only was she so incredibly humbled, but it was the pinnacle of her career, she said. So, for people that think, I'm not an admin, I'm something else. And you know, yeah, you're really an admin. We're saying a bit of a shift in wanting to identify as an admin because people are saying admins are in the spotlight, right? They're in the spotlight in a big way. And listen, it's important that we all take the time to not only show recognition to our peers, but to accept recognition when somebody deserves that you are, or decides that you are deserving of it and worthy of it. Okay, so I don't want to bring everybody down. However, I do want to share a story with you because it's just a really incredibly powerful testament to the dedication and loyalty during unimaginably trying times. So Aaliyah Morgan, her primary role was the EA to a man named Greg Barrows, who was a director of call center operations for Wells Fargo Dealer Service. And Aaliyah handled everything for Greg. You did not get to Greg unless it was through Aaliyah. I'm sure you can identify that. And in his nomination, Greg says that Aaliyah is recognized as my right arm. And folks know you have to get to Aaliyah first. She watches out for me, protects me, provides me information that I might not normally get from normal channels. She reports to work before me and leaves with me or right after me. When I'm traveling, I know she's still at her post for me and the operation. She is my best friend at work and I can trust her. He then talks about all these other really important things that she does in helping other operations managers in North Carolina, Texas, California. She's built relationships with 25 to 35 managers and supervisors. And again, I'm not going to talk about everything that she does, but it is a very long list. So Aaliyah was nominated for the Above the Call Award in Dallas a couple years ago. And I stopped reading nominations because I became too invested in the outcome. I would start to get attached to candidates, and I have nothing to do with judging, and I never will, except the Founders Award, which is the only company award. If a company creates a great environment for administrative professionals, I do choose that award, but I don't choose any of the individual awards. There is a very big separation of church and state. So a board of judges, not our advisory board members, not sponsors, an independent board of judges makes all of the decisions in the award categories. But one of my staff members said, hey, you know, Aaliyah Morgan in Dallas, we're not getting her bio and her headshot. And we've sent her multiple emails and I don't know what's going on. It's not like a finalist not respond to us. So I said, hey, read the nomination and see who else. We need to probably contact her boss to see, are we going into spam? We've left messages. Long story short, they read the nomination and they come back to me and they say, Sunny, when this nomination was written a couple months ago, Aaliyah was battling stage 4 colon cancer. And I don't know what's going on now, but it looks like she might be in experimental trials in Houston. I wonder if she's still there. And so long story short, I called her boss, Greg, and I said, Greg, I just have to ask, like, so the other thing is I knew Aaliyah won this award. And so it was really important that we get in touch with her, right? We needed her bio, we needed her headshot, we needed to confirm that she was going to be at the gala. Once I understood what was going on, I suspected that she wasn't going to be able to be at the gala. Well, what I learned was that she was at MD Anderson in Houston being treated for colon cancer. And Greg said that she had days, if not weeks left. And I will tell you that conversation with Greg, he said, Sunny, she is still trying to support me. And the thing that bothers her the most right now is not being able to be there for me. She is insisting on being involved in ways that she can be. And it is devastating to her that during her final moment, she can't be there to support me. And he was crying on the phone. I was crying on the phone. And I said, Greg, I have to tell you, Aaliyah won. And I want to make sure that we get this award to her, that she knows that she won. Well, I encourage you to watch the Dallas Admin Awards from 2017 or 18. And if you email me, I'll send you the link. Her whole family was there, her husband and her son, which you see in this picture, and they accepted the award on her behalf. And the timing ended up being really, really coincidental. The day that she won, the Above the Call Award that evening was her memorial. And so her family took her award and laid it by her casket with her picture. And everybody at that memorial service knew that Aaliyah won the Above the Call Award. And to know what that meant to her, this is more than a profession. And it's more than a profession when you're showing up every day and you're healthy and you're serving your leaders and your organization. It was more than a profession when she was taking her last breaths. And to know that she was so touched by this is something I'll never forget. And so that was one of the most heart-wrenching moments. There was not a dry eye when she took the stage. There was, of course, a standing ovation. Everyone was crying, and it was a beautiful tribute and a beautiful moment for her sweet. I mean, look at his face. Look at her son's face. I mean, if that's not just unabashed pride for his mom, like, I don't know what is. And so it was our honor to be able to give her family that experience so they could see she was an amazing mom, an amazing wife, but she was also a fierce and incredibly talented and loyal administrator. So with that, I'm going to turn it up a notch, and we're going to have a little bit of fun before we shut it down. So Cherie Moorhead, if any of you are race fans, you know Texas Motor Speedway, and you might even know Eddie Gossage, who was another incredibly irreverent, larger than life CEO. He created Texas Motor Speedway from the ground up. He built it, and Cherie was alongside him for over 2 decades as his administrator. So Eddie nominates Cherie for the Loyalty Award 2 months before she's set to retire. And I am thinking it would be so awesome if she won. I have nothing to say, and I don't even talk to the judges. I don't even talk to Colleen Barrett when I send her those nominations. It's there you go, good luck. I'm so glad I'm not one of you. So Eddie sends us a nomination. I'm going to read it to you because it is one of my favorite and the funniest in our 10-year history. He says, Cherie is one of Speedway's original employees that began working here 23 years ago. There is no normal, and the job entails supporting leading the president of the Speedway. Oftentimes she leads me. You don't go to a school to learn how to run a Speedway and how to deal with a wide array of matters. Cherie is required to juggle all the balls and remain calm, cool, professional, all while serving as my most trusted advisor. The job includes dealing with fans, divas, sports stars, music, artists, elected officials, media, staff, attorneys, the staff from our publicly traded home office, concession issues, merchandise issues, operational issues, could be weather-related, medical, parking, ticketing, traffic, etc., security matters, and more. And then there is the promotional side of my job that requires her to know exactly what I mean and how to respond when I hurriedly walk by her desk and say without breaking stride, and these are real life examples, I need a Western shirt that lights up. Find me a monkey that'll sell souvenir programs. I need 2 life-size Rock'em Sock'em robots today. Send that motorized bathtub to that dinner and remind him that I can't eat chicken. And she never looks up either. She just gets the Western shirt that lights up, or the monkey, or the Rock'em Sock'em robots, and all the rest, because this is an everyday thing for her. And all the while, whether it's the president of one of America's biggest corporations, or a congressman, or a fan I met at a gas station calling me on the phone, she talks to them individually, and they don't realize that she's also trying to get the next person in line auditioning as a fire breather to go into my office to show me their skills. And that's what she does every day, all the time. That's our normal. There isn't any professional skill needed that she can't apply. For 23 years, everything perfect, no mistakes, never forgot anything. And then he says, and this is my favorite, she's put up with me since 1996, and I must be honest, I got tired of me in 2002. And with that, I will leave you all. That is a little bit about the Admin Awards. I could tell you story after story after story of more winners, and I'll definitely make sure you guys know when I do a public winners, making of a winner seminar, where that's all I talk about. But I hope that that inspired you a little bit. I hope it reminded you that you do really important work, and that we see you, the world sees you, we love you, we could not survive without you, and that you're my unicorns. You are absolutely unicorns, so never forget that. All right, Julia, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Wow, that was terrific, Sunny. I'm not gonna lie, I got a little red-eyed, and it was hilarious too. Thanks for so many inspiring stories. Well,
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, well, we'll let everybody enjoy the rest of their night. And thank you so much for joining us for another cabinet webinar. And thank you, Sunny. That was just terrific.
You bet. My pleasure. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Great.